ratio to the kind of rent that you can charge is very good.
Yeah. What are you looking at for average purchase price there?
So this is Main Street, Bethlehem. There are restaurants, there are shops, there's outdoor shopping and dining, and all of my properties are basically within a 3 to 4 block radius of this hip hop happening downtown. Bethlehem is home to the largest free music festival in the world every summer. They close down all the streets, and for 10 days, there's different music venues all over the city. There's a Celtic festival. It's like a great place to live and play and work and everything like that. So what I'm talking about happened with this as a context. I don't think it would work everywhere, but it worked in my market because there's a high demand and I can re-rent my places very quickly. I have somewhere close to 0 days vacancy every year in all 37 of my units. So the strategy that I utilized was I basically bird inside of a deal. And I can explain what that means to all the listeners who did. I mean, I'm assuming most of your listeners know what a burr is.
Yeah, buy, rehab, rent, finance, repeat. But for those who don't know, yeah, it's like a flip they hold on to.
If you have a pen and paper, you can write it down if you're a listener, or if you're Brandon or Dave and you want to write it down. Step one is I found an off-market deal because I went in and started talking to a 92-year-old real estate investor who knew other 92-year-olds. And they're looking to unload their portfolio without leaving their heirs with a gigantic mess to clean up. So I found an older gentleman who was trying to sell a 21-unit portfolio. And he wanted $1.6 million for those 21 units. There's a 5-unit in there that I did not want, and I also did not have $1.6 million, nor would I have gotten approved for a loan to buy a $1.6 million portfolio. So I talked to the guy, and I convinced him to peel off the 5-unit and sell me 16 contiguous units that were adjacent to mine. I hope that makes sense so far.
Multifamily or single family?
Yeah, it was 2 duplexes and a 12-unit that were all completely contiguous. So here's how I structured the deal. We negotiated a price of $1,050,000 for those 16 units, contiguous units. I still did not have $1,050,000. In fact, I was rubbing pennies together. I went to my father-in-law, whom I had borrowed money out of a HELOC from before. That was how I had kind of used like hard money in the past, was to utilize a HELOC for my father and my father-in-law and then, refinance out and pay them back. And this was my biggest ask ever. I borrowed $315,000 from my father-in-law. When we brought the deal to the settlement agent, they divided up these 2 purchases on separate HUDs. So the 2 duplexes were able to be conveyed on 1 deed. That was 4 of the 16 units. And the 12 unit needed to be a standalone transaction. I used the $315,000 to buy the 2 duplexes with cash for a purchase price of $265,000. They appraised for $330,000 right away. And I went to a bank and said, I would like to get a refinance loan based on the $330,000 valuation. Now, this is where it harkens back to what we were talking about before. Remember, banks want to loan money based on the value of the collateral asset. So even though I had just purchased this property for $65,000, it appraised for $330,000, and the bank was willing to loan me 80% of the $330,000. Not 80% of the original purchase price. Now, not all banks are going to be willing to do that, but I found a local bank that was willing to do that. So I immediately refied back out, what would that be, $267,000 of the $330,000 purchase price. I still hadn't bought the 12 unit, but now I had $267,000 in cash still in my hand because I had refinanced it back out of these 2 duplexes, which I now owned. And then I went to settlement on the 12 unit and used the $267,000 as the down payment for the remaining $785,000 purchase price for the 12 unit. So I essentially, it was within a month, I burred within the deal, bought those properties. I still had a little bit of change left over. I did some renovations, and within a year, the value of the 16 units was $1.5 million, and I refinanced back out and paid back my father-in-law his $315,000 and gave it back to him. So that was $0 of my own money. I didn't hurt my father-in-law at all because I was willing to pay the ongoing interest on his HELOC every month. And I was able to grab property and make sure it cash flowed, get a new valuation, and pay everybody back out. And now the equity is all mine, and the cash flow that these properties throw off is all mine. So when you're a real estate investor, this kind of stuff crops up. When you can drive the value of the property up, you can borrow more money against the increased value of the property. That's the BRRRR method. Now, I want to throw out something here that's a lesson for every advanced real estate investor, and that's this. I ran into some hard times when I was renovating the 12 unit. First of all, it was filled with tenants who were not great. Within 8 months, 2 of my tenants had died. I was carrying naloxone or Narcan around because one of my tenants, which by the way is how you revive someone from a heroin overdose, is naloxone or Narcan. And my tenant had said, if you ever find me unconscious, use this to revive me. The day before settlement on the 12 unit. Yeah, exactly. Now I'm carrying around. The day before settlement, the seller called me and said, hey, by the way, in the front hallway, you're going to find a head hole in the drywall because 2 of the tenants got into a fight in the front hallway and one of them put the other one's head through the wall. Just so you know, that's waiting for you when you take ownership. So it wasn't all easy breezy. I walked into a really difficult situation, and my wife and I had to figure out everything from tracking down next of kin for a deceased tenant to dealing with a funeral home who didn't have next of kin to doing an estate clean out for an apartment with food on the table and in the refrigerator and honestly drugs and other stuff up to your knees inside of the apartment. It was not great, and this place was in not great condition. But over the course of the year, the reason that the value went up so much is I busted my butt, I managed contractors, I did a lot of the work to add some sweat equity to the place, and we turned around all 12 units to turn it into something that now is highly desirable. It's clean, it's neat, it's trendy, it's somewhere that my tenants now want to live, but it was not easy, and it took a lot of hard work. Something else I want to throw out to you guys, David and Brandon, this may help. I also had a contractor who was working on that 12 unit. Now, I didn't pull permits because the contractor was not doing work that required permits. He was replacing flooring and cabinets, so there was no need for me to get a permit from the city. He injured himself while he was working at my place, and I had simply taken his word that he was adequately insured before he started doing work on my property. Landlords out there, that's a no-no. You want a additional insured certificate from your contractor's insurance agent before he even darkens the threshold of the door, because if he's not adequately insured, that can come back on you as the owner of the property. And I'll throw this out there too. If you're just doing side work, like you hired a high school kid to clean out your gutters or something like that, and that kid falls off a ladder, the first thing that they ask at intake at the ER is, how did you injure yourself? And they want to know whether it was a work-related injury or just a normal injury, and that triage is where the insurance claim goes to. So even if you're a bigwig real estate investor at this point, you need to protect yourself against potential stuff like this. Thankfully, with this contractor who hurt himself, I was able to make the case that I was not his employer, which that's the first thing they look for, and therefore I was not obliged to carry workers' compensation to have this guy working on my property, because otherwise I didn't have workers' comp because I don't have employees. There's actually no way for me to get it. And I had to go through a whole rigmarole with my insurance agent he's like, why did you not have this paper in hand? I'm like, you didn't tell me I needed to get it in hand from everybody. You've got to protect yourself when you have this kind of work done. Even if you're a bigwig or you have lots of units, that can come back and bite you, and it's a precaution that you need to take. So it was trying and difficult, and the number one point I walked away with it was either You have to have somebody who has an insurance certificate that they're sending to you. Or if you're having somebody do side work on one of your properties and they're not an insured contractor because the kind of work that they're doing is not something that's insured, you want to have somebody, and talk to your insurance agent about this. You want somebody who has what's called a workers' compensation waiver form. It's them agreeing to not pursue a workers' comp claim if they happen to be injured. They're waiving their right to workers' compensation. So talk to your insurance agent about a workers' comp waiver form. There's probably some big investors out there right now who tomorrow are having people doing work in their properties who do not have a certificate, or it's somebody's cousin helping them do demo because they're doing demolition on a unit and the person doesn't have adequate medical insurance. Guys, this is so important. It's so important that I actually wrote a song that I'm going to play for you to drive this point home for all of your investors.
No, did you really?
About how there's a lot of really dumb things that you could do.
Bryce is grabbing his guitar right now for those who can't see this.
Yeah, if you can't see it, you can hear it.
This is a first on the podcast, just so you know it.
This is called the Have Your Workers Sign a Workers' Comp Waiver Reform. There's a lot of dumb things you could do, but this one is dumb to not have you do it. Are we ready? Here we go.
Let's hear it.
You can leave your sunroof open in the middle of a storm. But don't forget, all workers need a workers' comp waiver form. You can lean up against the stove top while the burners are still warm. Just don't forget, all workers need a workers' comp waiver form. You can run into the courthouse and pull the fire alarm. Don't forget, all workers need a workers' comp waiver form. You can walk to the devil, and you can grab him by the horn. Just don't forget, all workers need a workers' comp waiver form. Remember it, even if you're a big investor. I hope that song plants in your brain.
Bryce, you have a way of making statements that people are going to remember forever. So I think that's
those are some big lessons that I learned. That stuff comes to you one step at a time. It starts with perfecting the step that you're on. It starts with doing those little steps that you have that are right in front of you. It starts by asking for help from people who know how to define an ecosystem of answers for you, like I did with that kid who was just starting out. He could really ask stupid questions and make mistakes on paper with me that I could tell him that's not going to work out. And he was willing to do the work to get up to that point. So for me, a few things have helped drive that home. One is, again, I joined the M1 Mastermind. I found a lot of great answers there, from how to do a wholesale agreement. I had never done a wholesale deal. I did one of those in the last 3 years. I made $40,000 off of it. That was terrific. Each step, you're going to be able to ask for help, but you have to make sure you're not afraid of looking stupid, like asking how to go get a form on a website, so you can take yourself past the finish line. The other thing I did in the last 3 years was I wrote a book on house hacking. It took me a really long time. You guys have both written books, so you probably know how this works. It's like giving birth to a pine cone. It hurts, and it's slow, and it's not always a fun process, and it can get messy. But
what's it called?
My book is called House Hacker's Guide to the Galaxy. And essentially it breaks down my journey in house hacking, one stupid little step at a time, from the perspective of me and my wife going from being, again, scared kids who had just gotten married and were in debt to being financially free. And now we have 4 kids. We live in our dream house. It's been funded by house hacking, essentially.
That's awesome. Hey, first of all, where do people get the book, just so they can go check it out?
You can buy the book on Amazon. The show producer said he put hyperlinks in the show notes, so you can do that. But it's on Amazon. You can buy a paperback copy or get an e-copy for your Kindle or for any other e-reader that you have. If you just search House Hacker's Guide, it should be one of the first choices. And I'd love it if you read it. It's like I said, a stupidly simple perspective on how to take each step one at a time in the process of house hacking.
Cool, man. Cool. Congrats. Yeah, writing a book is a battle, is a process. Yeah, I wrote one this year. It's coming out next year. Also, it was a it's a journey. It's good for clarifying your thoughts and all that, just like mentoring people. But yeah, it's awesome. So congratulations on that. All right, Bryce, I got a few more questions to throw at you before we get out of here today. First of all, if you had to like sum up like the last 3 years, if you had to create a theme, like since you've been on the show last time, if like, what's the theme of the last couple of years? If you had to sum it up, like let's say you're going to write a book, a biography of the last 2 years of your life. What's the title of that book?
I've been waiting a quarter of my life on this earth to go into space. It's incredible to think that I'm here. I'm now 80 years of age.
We're going to space despite the prognosis.
For me to go into space and defy Parkinson's, it's hopefully inspirational to all people.
I know this is going to be long, but I'm not a disciplined person. I'm not self-disciplined. Type A people are a mystery to me. Even people who are able to get up early and knock it out of the park every day, that's a mystery to me too. The only thing I've got going for me is I've been willing to move, I'll put it like this, I've been willing to move the ball 3 yards on every down. I just tell myself every day, okay, there's something I can do today, whether it's just print out a stupid little form and leave it on the printer for tomorrow. I'm just going to take one stinking step today that benefits my portfolio, that gets me headed towards my goals. You have to have goals so you know where you're headed, but once you have those goals in place and they're clear to you and you love the goals, and they look like something that you really want, then you just have to say, okay, today I'm going to call this person. Today I'm going to do this Google search and download this form. And then tomorrow, and you'll run into stuff where